Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Safe Zone. My name is Brooke Tesfaye. Today we're going to talk about the Nikon menu banks on the Z9, but also other Pro bodies, the D6, D4, and all that, D5. So I believe it's something that is misunderstood, and there's not a lot of good information out there on the internet or anywhere that I have been able to find. So I'm going to dedicate this to that. And we're going to start with a circular phrase of the day. Today, circular phrase of the day is, if you take the time to learn it, I will take the time to teach it. And if I take the time to teach it, I will take the time to learn it. So I took the time to learn this so that I can present it to you. And I will be doing that on this video. First, let's start with an admission. I have been using Nikon, shooting Nikon forever, and I have never used the menu banks until very recently. And that's because, for various reasons, I should say. One, I didn't understand it well. The other, maybe I didn't take enough time to understand it well. And the manual or the guide that Nikon gives you is pretty fuzzy about it. And there's not a whole lot, like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot about it on the internet that I've been able to find, at least. So all these combined, until very recently, I did not really fully understand it myself. But now that I do, I am a big believer in it. And I am going to make you a big believer in it if you are so interested. I'm gonna be sharing my findings with you, and I believe once you understand, it's going to be very easy to use, especially if you use it in the manner that I'm going to show you how to use it. So let's get on with it. But before we do, we have one more thing. If you learned something today, and I promise you, you will, please leave me a comment telling me that you learned something today or something to that effect. I'm not going to tell you the words. You will find the words. So just leave me a comment in the comment section below. And if you could also like the video or ring the bell or subscribe, that would be great. So that's all I ask of you. I'm not gonna ask you for the 16 digits of your credit card or none of that. Just a like, a comment, maybe, and a subscription. Okay? Because after all, as they say in French, tu dormiras moins bête ce soir, which means you will sleep less of an idiot tonight. The French are kind of I shouldn't say. I'm not going to say anything. Well, let's get on with it, all right? The banks. Okay. We're going to talk about the banks with an S because there is not just one bank. There is, in fact, 3 banks. Okay? And we're going to cover them. There are 3 independent bank systems. That's what you have. 3 independent bank systems. Each of these bank systems have 4 banks under them. Okay, and each of these 3 bank systems have their own sphere of influence. Meaning, what you save under one bank is only saved in that bank, and it only saves what's part of that bank. Not so. To use examples, in the shooting menu bank, you're not going to save anything that is part of the custom settings menu. We're going to clarify this a lot more. I just wanted to say that from the start. So I said there are 3 bank systems. What are they? There's the photo shooting menu bank, there's the video shooting menu bank, and the custom settings bank. Okay, so 3 of those. 2 of them work in tandem, simultaneously at all times, depending on whether you're in photo mode or video mode. So it's either the photo and the customs menu bank that are working in tandem simultaneously, whether you like it or not, or the movie video shooting bank and the custom settings bank working in tandem. So either of those two are always working together, independently from each other, like I said. Okay, and we're going to cover what that means as well. Now, we're going to start with the shooting menu bank, or banks, because there are two of them, whether you're in photo mode or video mode, like I said. And they're independent, okay? So what is the shooting menu bank, and what is it not? So we're going to talk about those two things. It's an active memory bank, okay? By active, I mean it's always saving stuff when you work with it. Meaning, if you change something in the shooting menu, let me right now I have the shooting menu bank selection here. So let's say the first one is selected, right? So I'm in bank A of the photo shooting menu. If and this here is the photo shooting menu. This is not the bank, this is the menu. The bank is over here at the top, like right there. So that's the bank, and this is the photo shooting menu. Anything that is in this photo shooting menu will be part of the shooting menu bank. Okay? Anything that's part in this, I'm going to say it again. Photo shooting menu, which I'm in right now. So if you look on the left, there are different menu items, right? The top one, right now, since I'm in photo mode, it's the photo shooting menu. Anything that's here in the photo shooting menu is part of the bank. Anything that's here is already part of the bank. Now, I have bank A selected. So if I change any of these settings under the photo shooting menu, anything that I do will be automatically saved in that bank A, whether I like it or not. That's how it works. Now, if I were to choose bank instead of bank A, if I choose bank B, anything that I do here right now, let's say, I change this to rename this, then anything that I do here will be saved in that bank. Okay, there's no separate saving menu. It's automatically saved. So that is what the photo shooting menu is. Okay, that's what I mean by it's an active bank. So it also works in coordination or in combination with the currently selected custom bank. Now, what do I mean by that? If you go down, right, I said I was in the photo shooting menu. If you go down to the custom settings menu, guess what? You have the first item, which is the custom settings bank. That's the one that's currently active. That's the one that's currently selected. Anything under that is part of the custom settings bank. And if I change anything right now under this, like the, I don't know, let's say the metering or the ISO sensitivity step value, for example. If I change it from 1/3 to 1 step, guess what? It's saved in the bank A of the custom settings menu. Okay, so it's an active bank. Okay, and let's go back to the photo shooting menu because we're talking about that. So it's an active bank. It works in coordination with the currently selected custom settings bank. What it is not is, like I said, it's not sticky in the sense that any change that you make under the shooting menu overwrites the currently selected menu bank. I'm an A right now, I said. So anything that I change in here in the photo shooting menu will overwrite that bank A, because I'm in bank A currently. That's the bank that's selected. And there's always that one that's active, like I said. So that's why. And it doesn't work. So we're talking about what it is not, right? It doesn't work exactly the same way your this is a Z6 II. and the Z6 II have this U1, U2, U3 dial. It doesn't work quite the same way as these you know, U1, U2, U3, the bank system, and we'll see why, and you may already you may be already starting to understand why. Okay, and the last thing that it is not is it has nothing to do with the custom settings bank. I keep saying it over and over again because it's really important to understand that. Whatever you do in the photo shooting menu bank, whatever you do in the photo shooting menu is saved in the photo shooting menu bank and has nothing to do with the custom settings bank. Okay? Despite the default lettering system or convention that's used by Nikon, by the way, because they call them A, B, C, D by default. But you can change that. Well, they're still A, B, C, D, but you can name or add your own name next to it. Okay. So we covered what the photo or the shooting menu bank is. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about the custom settings bank. The custom settings bank, and I'm going to go to it right now. Keep going down, and I am in the, sorry, I passed it. Custom settings menu. So if I am in the custom settings menu, then anything in here in this menu is part of the custom settings bank. These are the things that you can only store in the custom settings bank. Okay, and it works. Currently, I have bank A selected, so I am working with bank A of the custom settings bank, and I'm working with bank A of the photo shooting menu bank. It doesn't have to be A to A, by the way. If I select, you know, B instead of bank A in the custom settings bank, now I'm working with bank B in the custom settings menu bank, but I'm also working in bank A of the photo shooting menu bank. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. I did not want to do that. Okay, so the custom settings bank, it is also an active memory bank, as you might have guessed. So it's always saving what you do under the custom settings menu. And it's saving it where? Under the currently selected bank. Okay. Also, like I said, similarly for the photo shooting menu bank, the custom settings bank works in coordination with the current or actively selected shooting bank, either in the photo or the video, depending on where you are. So what does that give you? That gives you up to a total of 16 combinations. 16 different combinations you could save, because you could have, you know, A working with any of the 4 banks in the custom settings bank, and B working with any of the 4 settings in the custom settings bank, etc. So that gives you a total of 16, up to 16 different combinations or settings that you could save potentially. Do you need all that? Probably not. What it is not, the custom settings bank, it is not sticky, just like the photo shooting menu bank, in the sense that any changes that you make in this bank will also overwrite whatever bank you're in for the custom settings bank, that is. It does not overwrite the photo shooting menu bank, obviously, because anything that you're working under the custom settings menu is contained in that menu. There's no overlap in the menu settings. And like I said, it doesn't work quite the same way as the U1, U2, and U3, and it has nothing to do with the shooting menu bank, despite the fact that it uses the same lettering convention, like I said. So the reason why I'm trying to draw a parallel between the two is to tell you how it's set up independently. Okay, similar but set up independently, the 2 banks or the 3 banks. Now I'm going to talk about what it furthermore about what it can save and what it cannot save, right? the banks in the shooting menu bank can only save the options that you see in the shooting menu. I've already said this. If you are trying to configure this bank here, for example, which is bank B in this case, it can only save what's in here. It cannot save, has nothing, it doesn't know what bank the custom bank settings are. This bank doesn't, because it's independent, right? So it can only save what's under it, under the photo shooting menu. Similarly, with the custom settings bank, it can only save what's under the custom settings. Okay. Now, I think you understand how it works a little bit better. So what's the issue, right? What is the issue with these banks? Because there is one. And you hear a lot of people talking about it. It's the fact that whenever you are, since you're always working under a bank, you're always working in a bank, any settings, any changes that you do during a shoot overwrites that bank. That's the problem. Well, it's a problem because now that bank is altered from the way you had it set up, and you know, over time it could totally be different from where you started. So how do you solve that? Well, the not so ideal way of solving that, which I have seen thrown out there, you know, on the internet, is you can make a backup of your settings the way you want them on a memory card, right? On a separate memory card that you don't use. It's a spare memory card, a small one, and then, you know, just throw that in your bag, and whenever you want to go back to your, you know, reset your settings, so to speak, the way you had them configured, you could, you know, take the card out of your camera, put the memory card that has your savings the way, or the banks the way you have them, and then load them to your banks on your camera, and then take it out, and then put the other card back in, your shooting card back in, and resume shooting. Yeah, it's that option is not practical, okay? Because not only you have to have a spare memory card with you, but you know, you also have to remember to take it on every shoot, and put it in your camera, load the settings, take it back out, blah blah. So it's tedious, and it gets complicated, it gets old, okay, pretty quickly. So how do you what's the best way of dealing with that? Well, that's what I'm about to tell you. The ideal way that I found that would solve that issue, okay, and listen very carefully, is to use to always use bank A as your working bank. What do I mean by that? Bank A is what you choose, first thing you choose when you work on a shoot would be bank A. That's your working bank. Whether it's for the customs menu bank, custom settings bank, or the shooting menu bank. Bank A, always your working bank. What you do is you save your configurations, your different settings, different scenarios of shooting on banks B, C, or D. B, C, or D are where you save your different settings. Bank A, we don't save anything to it. That's your working bank. It's a very simple solution, but it works great. Because all you have to do now, okay, is go, let's say you are out on a shoot and you want to use one of your presets. All you have to do is go to the bank that corresponds to your shooting scenario, okay? And then I'm actually going to show it to you while I'm doing it because it's easier to explain. So I have the I am in the photo shooting menu bank, all right? All right, so remember, A is always your working bank, okay? So let's say that I'm out on a shoot and I'm shooting landscape. All right, so I go to landscape. I go to landscape, and if you hit, once you're on landscape, if you hit the right button, which is on this here, if you go to the right, these options come up, okay? Rename, and below that, copy. That's where you what you want to do, copy. And if you go to copy, if you go to the right again, now the landscape, I'm going to copy it in my working bank, which is A. So A is selected already, so I go copy complete. That's it. Now, a very important thing, you've copied it to bank A, but you're not in bank A, you're in bank D, so you have to go back and select bank A. Boom. Now, you are working on a shoot with your landscape settings. Very easy to do. So what you have to remember are two things. Your working bank is the bank you always shoot in, which is the bank A. Never shoot in B, C, or D. Before you start a shoot, copy one of your banks, B, C, or D, into your working bank, bank A. And if you do use the custom settings bank, also do the same thing on the custom settings bank, okay? Now you may not have, something that I haven't said about the banks is, if there is one bank system that is more important than the other, I would say is to set up. It's the photo shooting or the video, the shooting banks versus the custom banks. Depending on your scenario, depending on what you shoot, and depending on what you do, this may be different for you. But I find that the custom settings bank, you may have one or two different settings there, but if you only have one setting that you use for in the custom settings, under here, if all of these are set up the right way, you can use them as a global setting, meaning you can use this as your custom settings that go with all your shooting scenarios, okay? But if you don't do it that way, if you do have a reason or a need to have separate settings, custom settings for different scenarios, then you can set up your custom settings the same way you set up your photo shooting banks. So anyway, so if you do have a custom settings bank set up, you do the same thing. You go to your custom settings bank, and you choose I don't know, people friendly. I have it here. Boom, you do that and copy. Now, before I copy, I'm going to show you something. So, see where it says working bank A? I don't recommend naming the working A as working bank, even though you should know it's your working bank. The reason being, as soon as you copy your settings into it, it's going to overwrite the name as well. So I chose the people friendly, for example. I'm going to go do it again. Copy, and I'm going to copy to my working bank. Boom. I do that, and it's complete, and I go back and select it. So now it's copied. All right. So now that becomes your active shooting bank. Your working bank becomes the one that I just selected. So, like I said, if you do have different needs, different settings and needs for the custom settings, by all means set up the different scenarios you have in the custom settings, and do the same and do the same thing before a shoot, meaning select the proper custom settings that you need. But if you don't, and if you have just one setting, if you already set it up and it's global, then it's already selected, or you can have the one global setting saved as a backup, like under B or C, etc. And if you can recall that at any time. So so that's what you do. So you go to your custom settings bank, copy it to A, same way you did it for the photo shoot, and that's it. And that's it. There's not nothing else to it. Now I'm going to talk about the savings banks. Okay. Now the savings banks. Even though I just talked about this briefly when I was talking about the working bank, which is Bank A, I'm going to reiterate it because it's really important to understand this notion. You're going to use banks B, C, and D as your saving banks. Bank A should never be used for saving your settings. It's your working bank. Okay. So you can configure saving banks B, C, or D for very different shooting scenarios, which is what I suggest. So you configure them for different scenarios that you typically run into. And the reason why I say that is because you can do whatever you want, of course, but if you have just one, let's say you're using saving bank B and C for fairly similar things, and maybe there's just one setting that you have different on C compared to B. Well, unless you have a spare bank and you don't really need all three shooting banks, for the fourth being your working again. So that's why I'm not counting it. Unless you don't need all three, then it's a waste, because you could always, once you have copied that bank into your working bank, you can always make that tweak that you would make that you created the separate bank for. So that's why I say set it for a very different shooting scenarios. That makes the most sense, I think. So that's really it. There's not much more to it. If you do this, I guarantee you'll have a much better time with the shooting banks, because they're great. If you use them this way, they're great, and I don't see any problem with not having U1, U2, U3 on these Pro bodies, because you can mimic essentially the same thing using the menu banks if you use them. If you use it like I just showed you how to. Okay, so finally, let's just do a quick recap. This method gives you 3 separate configuration banks, the same way, by the way, that you would have if you had dedicated buttons, U1, U2, U3. It gives you 3 dedicated banks where you can save your settings. Okay, you it does sacrifice one bank, which is bank A. It's always your working bank. Nothing is usually saved there. By the way, another great thing about that is if you don't work in one of your pre-configured scenarios, if you're just out shooting and you just want to fool around or whatever, you can just use that bank A without copying, and you're not affecting any of your banks. So that's another great reason to have one bank that you just don't set anything in, that you use for whatever reason. Okay, in our case it's bank A. So I think it's a much faster way of loading these kind of configurations. That, like I said, the other proposed method that I've seen out there, which uses a memory card, etc., it's very tedious. So this gives you a very fast and sure way of loading your configuration settings. You always have them with you. You're not looking for a memory card that has your settings, etc., on a shoot, or you don't always have to remember to take that card with you. Not to mention that it's a faster way of doing it. So a couple of tips. The I menu. Okay, tip number 1. The I menu is governed, okay, by the custom settings bank, or the custom settings, because if you look at where that iMenu configuration is, it's under the custom settings menu. Okay, so if I go back, if I go here, if you go under controls, customize iMenu. So what does that mean? Why do I say that? Well, since it's under the custom settings, which it also means that you can get up to 4, well, I should say 3, because A is your working bank. You should get 3 different settings. You can set your iMenu in 3 different ways, okay, and store them in your bank, custom bank B, C, and D, and recall them at will. So that's pretty neat, to be able to have different settings for your iMenu. Now the issue is you have to remember them, but as long as you have set them in a way that you would logical for your use on a given scenario, I think that's perfectly fine to have that flexibility of 3 different custom iMenus. The other thing is the controls. All the custom controls, custom buttons that we have on the camera, they're also part of the custom settings. So you can also have 3 different scenarios potentially, or 3 different settings if you need to use them. So that's another flexibility. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is something that I've also I gave it away earlier, but the shooting bank names are shared between the photo and, see where it says photo shooting menu here, shooting menu bank. The names, these names here that you'd store, they are shared between the photo side and the video side of things. But that doesn't mean they are the same settings, and they actually are not. Meaning, what do I mean by that? If you've named like you see here on my camera, B as portrait, C as sports and fast action, and D as landscape. Okay. Well, if I go in video mode, it will still be portrait for B, sports and fast action for C, and landscape for D. Why do I bring that up? The reason why I bring that up is because even though you see the same names, the settings are completely different, or can be completely different. That's because you have 2 different settings or banks for the photo side and the video side. So whatever you do on the photo side, when you have that selector switch on photo, only affects your photo shooting menu bank, not your video shooting menu bank, even though the name is the same. So that can be confusing. You see that here when you click the when you go to the video side, you see the same names, and you might think, oh, so those are the settings that I had for my photo shooting bank. But no, it's completely different. So you can change the settings, etc., the way you want them, configure them the way you want them, and they're only available to you when you're shooting video, and they can be very, very different from when you did the photo. I just lost the light, so I think it's about time for me to conclude this. I just want to say one thing. I recently added a video that explains in great detail all the various menu items that are on the Nikon Z9. And so if you have not watched that, I invite you to go to my channel and check that out. I will see you in another video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment. Thank you.